Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Well, as he said, I'm Alan from AJ Honey Farms out of Salina, Kansas. Thank you all for having me here today. I'm going to talk about honeybees here in Kansas. How many of us are beekeepers? Oh, good. So we got quite a few. So make sure you keep me in check. If I'm wrong, call me out on it. I've been beekeeping in Kansas for about 8 years. How I got started was I was actually the assistant manager out at the Pilot Travel Center in Salina, Kansas. And we get bees that travel from North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. Everybody sends their bees down to Texas. Why? Because you get better survival rates. Kansas is rough with beekeeping, and the reason I say that is because we get what I call bipolar winters. One day it might be 20 degrees, and the next day you might hit 70 degrees, and then it'll turn around and drop down to 30 degrees in 4 hours, and it doesn't get volume up.
Yeah, volume up a little bit.
So it doesn't give those bees an opportunity to get back into the hive and regain that heat cluster. So winters in Kansas can be very difficult. A lot of people will insulate their hives with wraps, roofing paper, all sorts of different things to try and keep that heat maintained inside those hives. But as I said, I got started at the Pilot Travel Center. Bee trucks were coming up from Texas, taking bees up to North Dakota for pollination. They usually start their runs about early May. And one day I had a bunch of people come into the store complaining that they're getting stung by bees. And I'm like, what the heck? So I go way out to the back corner where this truck driver has his truck parked. And there are just bees all over the place, and they're mad. They don't know where to go or what to do. They're flying all over the place. And the bee truck is getting ready to take off. And there's thousands of these bees. And I'm like, okay. I've seen YouTube. I can do this. So I went to my local hardware store and I bought your cheap Harvest Lane beehive equipment, and I took it out there. And I was told, put some lemongrass in there. So I put a little bit of lemongrass oil in it, and I came back that night, and all of the bees that were out and about flying, they were all in the beehive. And I'm like, whoa, this is cool. So I took all the bees home, but there was no queen. The queens won't come out of those hives on those trucks. So I went to Manhattan, and I picked up a queen, and I brought it back, and I introduced it into the colony. Paid very careful attention to how you're supposed to do all that, so I didn't hurt the queen. And about 3 days later, I had a good active colony. She was laying eggs in there. The bees had released her from her cage. And that was my very first colony. And I sat out there, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 months and just watched them. Just sat on my bench and watched them come and go, pulling in pollen and building the colony. And that was my very first colony. At that point, that was it. I was a beekeeper. And it wasn't going to change. So then I started taking classes and learning about how to take care of the bees and what is all this about beekeeping and how do I do this to the best of my ability. So I took some online classes with, I believe, at the University of Montana. They have some excellent beekeeping classes. And there's several others out there, Penn State, and I'm certain Minnesota has some really good beekeeping classes too. But I got those beekeeping classes, found myself a local mentor, and had them check on me and make sure that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing with my hives. And since then, first year I went from 1 hive. Into the second year I went into 4 hives. The third year I was into 10 hives. My fourth year I hit 40 hives. Right now we're up to, last year we walked into the winter with 100 hives. Winter hit me so hard, I lost 80 of my 100. Yep. So I ended up splitting all my beehives. I've recovered to a total of 60. And this next year, this winter, I am probably going to do exactly that, take my colonies down to Texas. That way I can split them out. I'm going to have a better survival rate, and then I'm going to bring them back home. I have right now probably 6 different locations where I can keep all my hives. But our goal this next year is we're going to hit 200 hives. and see how I can manage 200 hives. If I have no issues, then maybe next year we'll go to 400 and keep going. You never know. I mean, when it comes to beekeeping, I mean, it's kind of like chickens, isn't it? Once you get a few of them, it just yep, chicken math, exactly. So, so that's kind of our goals right now. We did just acquire about 12 and a half acres property that we're going to turn into a pollinator preserve out in Salina. We're going to set a bunch of it up with just not necessarily Kansas native flowers, but we're going to set it up with high nectar and pollen producing flowers. About a half of the section that we're going to use, and then the other half of the section we're going to split into, like you pick, vegetables, fruits, all that type of stuff, as well as we're going to have a Kansas native perennial pollinator arboretum garden where people can come through. They're going to be able to see what flowers are what. They'll be labeled with their scientific names as well as their common names. You'll be able to sit on the park benches and enjoy the whole thing. So that's what we're currently building. Gotta say, if it wasn't for FSA, this wouldn't even be possible for us. So FSA, if you guys ever want to start your own farm or anything like that, FSA, talk to them. They're there to help you. They really are. I mean, they've done phenomenal work for us. So started with my first hive. After the second year, I had 4 hives, and the third year, I had 40 hives. I was with Pilot for a total of 4 years. At 40 hives, I was producing enough honey to where I was able to actively and effectively run farmers markets without running out of honey. And then we started doing vendor shows throughout all of Kansas. My first vendor show was the Abilene Antique Car and Craft Show. Now, mind you, I'm making $25 an hour at Pilot, which isn't too bad for an assistant manager, and I'm working 40-plus hours a week. I did the Antique Car and Craft Show. It was one Saturday. It took me 5 hours. It took me probably 5 or 6 hours at home to get everything made and bottled and everything that I wanted to take to the show. In those 5 hours, I cleared $1,700. I was like, wait a second. The light bulb kicks on. I go, okay. I don't make that much money on a weekly basis as an assistant manager at Pilot, and I just made that in one day. So what can I do to do this every day, or try and make that kind of goal every day? My wife looked at me and said, you have to make X amount of dollars every week, and you can quit Pilot. 2 months, I quit. I was done. I was making my goal. I was making way past my goal. After 2 months, we had a buddy come up to us and go, hey, I got a spot for you guys. You guys need to check this out. So we went and checked out a retail location, and we contacted the owner, and he's like, $550 a month. You can have it for that. We're like, okay, you can't even get a studio for $550 a month. And this was right on one of the busiest corners of Salina. So we jumped on it. So 2 months after I quit, we opened up our retail store. 2 months after that, my wife quit her job. There was too much work to be done and too much money to make. So that's when we decided, okay, it's time to become a commercial beekeepers and start really expanding and pushing out as many hives as we can. At this point, we have had the storefront open. We are come October, we will be walking into our 4th year of open retail business. We have our honey throughout the state of Kansas, starting at Maple Hill. We go all the way out to Goodland. We go all the way to Wichita. We're up in Concordia. So we have our honey all over the place, and we're always looking to expand that as well. Now, as far as beekeeping is concerned, of course, I keep a bunch of hives, so I probably don't keep bees like a hobbyist beekeeper would keep bees. But I have in the past, so I have plenty of experience with making lots of mistakes doing it. And the bees will let you know, of course, when you've made a mistake, many times. I get asked the question all the time, how many times have you been stung? I stopped counting. At this point in the game, it's not whether I get stung or not, it's whether I notice that I got stung or not. And you just keep on moving. So with beekeeping, the first thing we need to know, in my opinion, about honeybees is what kind of honeybees are there? You have three different kinds of honeybees in a beehive. You have a queen honeybee, and of course, her only job in that hive is to lay eggs. That's the only thing that she has to do. She doesn't feed herself. She doesn't clean herself. She doesn't remove her waste. All she does is lay eggs. So then you have your second caste of honeybees, and that's your workers. All of your worker honeybees in your beehive are female honeybees. All of your worker honeybees have stingers, and they go through phases of development as they go through their life. So the first 3 to 4 days, they're nurse bees. The first thing that they do is they chew through the cell, and they turn around and they start cleaning. They might go get a little bit of food, but they'll start cleaning, getting all those cells ready for that queen to lay an egg in. Then the next phase they'll move into is a guard bee. So they'll stand guard at the entrance, making sure no other foreign insects come into the hive. If they do, they go out, they attack them, they sting them, whatever they need to do. Animals, predators, that's what the guard bees are there for. We have skunks, raccoons, different mammal predators that bees have issues with here in Kansas. What a skunk will do is they will come up to the side of the beehive, and if you ever notice there's scratch marks on the side of your beehive and there's no more bees, that's a skunk. They have come up, they put their tail across that entrance, and they swat their tail across that entrance as the bees come out to attack it. The bees get tangled up in the tail, and the skunk just picks them out and eats them like candy. So one of the ways you can combat that type of thing is go get some carpet tack strips. Make the hive scratch back. Put them on the sides of your hive, so when they scratch on the side, it scratches their paws back. You can also get like, bad example, these are too big. The joist brackets, like 2x4 joist brackets. Put them on the ground. They don't like to walk on that stuff. So they'll stay out from the entrance. So that'll help to kind of protect you against those types of pests. Another thing to know about worker bees is the worker bees can sting you. The drones, the male bees, cannot. They don't have stingers. But your worker bees can tend to be more aggressive if you wear darker colors as you're checking your beehives. Because through evolution, darker colors have taught the bees that dark is aggressive. Bears, skunks, raccoons, they're all darker colored creatures. So if you wear darker colors, they're going to attack those darker colors before they attack lighter colors. I tested this. So I don't wear the thick, heavy gauntlet gloves. I do wear gloves, but I usually wear the nitrile gloves. And it doesn't really protect you from bee stings, but kind of deters them. They don't like being on them. So it helps my hands from getting stung quite so much. You can buy them at the auto parts store, and they're black. And that's what I tried first. Yeah, that was wrong. I came out, my hands were balloons when I was done. I've since switched that color over to orange. I don't get stung anymore. So they will go after those darker colors. Then after your bee it stops becoming a guard bee, that moves on to becoming a forager bee. And she will literally fly herself to death at that point, foraging for the beehives. She's going to forage nectar. She's going to forage pollen. She's going to forage water, saps, everything she can find that hive is going to need. Of course, we all know nectar. When they forage that nectar, they pull it out of the flower, and it's really cool how they find out about that, or how they know which flowers have nectar. And can anybody out here tell me how a honeybee knows which flowers have nectar and which ones do not? It's a visual thing. So a flower that has nectar in it has a positive charge, and the bee can see that. A flower that does not have nectar in it is a negative charge, and it looks dark to the bee. So the bee won't go to that flower. So they can see that positive and negative charge. So that's how they know that flower has nectar. When they pull the nectar out of that flower, typically it's about 80% water. So they'll take that nectar back to the hive, and they will pass it from one bee to another bee to another bee until they decide it's going to go into the comb in the beehive. That's called trophallaxis, passing that nectar from one bee to the other. When they get it into that comb, it still has a pretty high water content in there. So you're going to have your nurse bees, your worker bees back in there. They're going to be fanning that nectar down to dry it below 18% water content. Once it hits below 18% water content, they're going to cap that honey. It's now honey. They cap it, and that keeps it good. Below 18% water means that honey will not ferment on you. If it's above 18% water content, at some point it's going to start to ferment on you and go bad. So if you can dry that honey, if you pull honey frames out that aren't completely capped, sometimes check your honey, your water level in your honey to see where it's at. If not, if it's above that water content, put it in a hot room with a fan to blow that humidity off the top of it, and that'll help to drop that water content. I don't know with Kansas humidity that you'll get it to the optimal, but you can get it pretty close. Other than that, honey dryers are super expensive. I've been shopping for one, and I think I'm going to just have to build my own at this point because they are like 10 grand for a commercial grade honey dryer. And that's too much money for me to spend. But so now we're going to work on, so now the bees will go off, they'll forage. Honeybee can produce up to, I believe the math is a 1/4 teaspoon of honey in her life. Now, that's like hardly any. But we have, in the peak of our bee season, 60,000 honeybees in that one colony. So, middle of July, one hive, it's got 2 hive bodies on it, 2 boxes on it. You're probably looking at 60,000 bees in that colony. Then, as we start to come towards the fall season, they start to decline in the population. So they cut down how many bees that they need. The queen actually starts laying what we call winter bees. Their physiology changes a little bit because your worker bees throughout the summertime, they're always working, they're always flying. They live to be 30 to 45 days old. Your winter bees, though, they can live to be all winter long, 4 or 5 months, depending on where you're at, where you live. Further north, your winters are longer, so they can live to be live all winter long, so several months. And that's because the queen knows what's happening, so she starts shifting the eggs that she's laying to winter bees. She can also do that with the males and the females. So your drones and your brood, the queen is able to decide whether she's going to lay fertilized eggs, which is your workers, your females, or unfertilized eggs, which are your males. Moving on to the males, so your males, they're drones. So the male honeybee is only good for one thing, and that is mating. During the springtime, the queen, an unmated virgin queen, will fly out and go to what we call a drone congregation area, where there's lots and lots of drones. She will mate with 15 to 20 of these drones. Each one that she mates with will die immediately afterwards. And then she will come back to the hive, and she'll have enough DNA to be able to lay up to 2,000 eggs a day. And she, 20, 30 years ago, she could have done this for up to 3 to 4 years. Nowadays, your queen usually lives to be 2, 3 years old, and it's been reducing. So we're not getting as much life out of our queens. The queens aren't laying. You get past your 2nd year with a queen, and she's just not laying like she used to, like she should. So then it's time to replace her. Get another queen in there that's doing good, a young 1st-year queen, and she'll start your egg production, your colony production will increase again, and you can move on from there. But your queen, like I said, she can live to be 3, 4, 5 years old. The reason she's able to live to be that long or that old is because they feed her exclusively royal jelly. From the time she's an egg, they put royal jelly in that cell she's in, and that's all that they feed her throughout her lifetime. And for some reason, that's able to, we don't know why, something in the royal jelly allows for that to happen, but that increases her longevity quite a bit. So our drone bees, they're only good for mating. They will die after mating. Queen comes back to the hive. She lays her eggs. Now the drone bees don't do anything. So they're just like your teenagers. Go home, click the remote, say, "Hey, feed me." They go from hive to hive, beg for food, beg for food, beg for food. They don't forage anything. They don't go out. They don't get nectar. They don't bring it back to the hive. So what happens is the very first cold snap of the season, all the drones get kicked out of the hive, and they all die. It gets too cold for them. They can't survive without being inside the hive. The bees do this because they know that the drones, all they're going to do is sit inside the hive and consume resources. They won't even create heat. So they don't do the hive any good throughout the winter time, so they kick them all out. Come spring, the queen will say, "Okay, we need drones again," and start laying unfertilized eggs, and those come out and become our drone honeybees. Drone honeybees don't have a stinger, so they can't hurt you. But I mean, that doesn't do you a whole lot of good if you don't know what's flying around you. If you can take a close look at your honeybee, your worker honeybee versus your drone honeybee, she is much smaller than your drone. Your drone is a larger honeybee. Your honeybees have what we call 5 eyes. 2 of them are compound and very large compared to the other 3 eyes. With the drone, those eyes will actually come up to the top of their head and touch each other. With the queen, they are very sharp and smart looking. Or not with the queen, but with your workers, they are very sharp and smart looking. So that's how you're able to tell your drones from your workers. Now, your queen is actually even larger than the drone. Her abdominal section becomes much larger and much fatter. So she will go around the hive and she'll put her bottom into the cell, and at the very, very center of that cell, at the very bottom, she will lay an egg, and then she'll move on to the next cell and the next cell. Now, we do have issues as beekeepers with if we're not taking care of our hives or not able to notice that we're short, that we don't have a queen in that hive anymore. You could end up with what we call a laying worker. And a laying worker will lay eggs on the sides of the cells because her bottom can't reach the bottom all the way to the bottom of the cell. It's shorter. And she can't count either. She'll put 4 or 5 or 6 eggs in one cell instead of 1 egg in one cell. So that's how if you look inside at your frames and you see something like that, then you know that you have a laying worker and it's time to get that issue resolved. Now, what makes a laying worker? Well, absence of a queen. So your queen emits what we call a pheromone. And this pheromone throughout the hive sterilizes all of your worker bees so they can't lay eggs. Well, once your queen is gone, after a time, that sterilization stops. And some of those workers will be able to lay those eggs. So if you allow time to go long enough in your hive without a queen, you'll end up with that problem. All right. Thank you. Thank you for saying something. So with, I'm sorry, I'm kind of drawing a little bit of a blank here. The other thing with the queen is those pheromones, those pheromones also trigger swarms. So what will happen inside the hive, and this happens during the springtime. So you guys might see it by a great big cluster of bees hanging off of a tree, or a mailbox, or a fence post. What we call those are swarms. So what's happened in that colony is it's split. The queen has been so overproductive that she's filled that colony full of brood, full of eggs. And all those eggs are starting to develop, and we call that brood. So your egg then lays over, it turns into a larva. And after a little while, that larva turns into a pupa, and that cell gets capped. And then that pupa turns into a honeybee. She chews her way out of that cell, and now she's emerged from the cell, and she's able to go about her day doing her business. What happens inside during a swarm is she's laid so many eggs, there's so much brood inside that hive that the pheromone actually shifts. The queen's pheromone isn't overpowering the hive anymore. The brood actually emits its own pheromone, and it's controlling the hive. So that triggers all the workers in the hive that it's time to swarm. They start running the queen around and start feeding her less food. This way she loses weight and she can fly. From the time she lays an egg and they choose that egg to be the next queen, it is 16 days for that egg to hatch. So they'll run her for about a week, 2 weeks, and then she'll decide it's time to leave. And she takes half of the colony. They gorge themselves on as much resources as they can, and they leave. And they go land on a branch or a mailbox or a fence post or wherever is inconvenient. And then they start sending scouts out from that branch, and those scouts, they go check out this spot and that spot and another spot. It might be the hole in this tree or the hole in the gutter on your house over here or wherever to find a new home. And if they find something that's suitable, that they think is suitable, they come back to that cluster and they do a little dance or whatever it is that they do, and they say, hey, I need you guys to come over here. Check this out. So they get 6 or 7 more that goes over there and checks that same spot out. Then you get a general consensus throughout the whole colony. Once they have that general consensus, they all pick up and they take off and they go where they decided to, and that's where they're going to start making their colony. So that's when you call us, when they've made their colony in that inconvenient spot in your house, in the hole that they found off the eave of your house, or in the tree that's 3 feet up off the ground in your backyard where you let your little dog out all the time, or all that type of stuff. Then you call us, the beekeepers, and we come out and go, okay, we're going to take this colony and we're going to give it a new home. Speaking of which, if there are people that do cutouts, get me your information. I'll post that information on my website and make sure that people in your area can contact you if you want to go do cutouts. We don't do cutouts. That's hours and hours of hot, sweaty, stingy, painful work, and you get all covered in honey. So I don't do cutouts. I don't typically remove bees from trees. Tree removal, removing bees from trees usually requires removing the whole tree. Usually they're in the trunk of the tree, and you're never going to trap them out of the tree. I've seen videos where they put cones on the trees and the bees come out, they can't get back in. In my opinion, that's slow starvation of the hive. The bees can go out, they leave the hive. Why do they leave the hive? To go forage for food. They can't get back in, so all the bees that stay inside the hive, all those nurse bees that haven't learned to fly and do all that type of stuff yet, they're stuck inside that hive. That queen is stuck inside that hive. She's not going to leave. So now there's no food going into the hive, so what's inside the hive is going to consume what's in there and then slowly starve to death until it's gone. Then the next year you're going to have another swarm out there somewhere that picks that spot for their next home because it smells like honeycomb and it smells like what it's supposed to. And they move in and you have the same issue all over again. So typically in a tree, if you're wanting to get rid of honeybees, you have to remove the whole tree. If it's not in a spot where it's going to bother anybody, I say leave them. Let them do their thing. There's no reason. They've been on this planet for millions of years. We don't have to intervene. We intervene because we like honey. A lot of us will keep bees because we need to be here. We need to help. We need to keep the pollinators. If we don't have our pollinators, what happens to us? So, and keep in mind, when I say pollinators, I don't necessarily mean honeybees. We have tons of pollinators out there. Honeybees are actually not from the United States. They were brought over with the early explorers from Europe. So there were no records before the early explorers that we've been able to find that show honeybees were here before they were here. So we can only assume that they brought them over with them. I'm sure there's some records stating that they brought them, but I haven't seen those. I don't get into history that much. But yes, we're talking your native pollinators. Like Kansas has tons of native pollinators, stinging and non-stinging bees that we rely on. These same stinging and non-stinging bees are the same kind that go from flower to flower, our butterflies, all that type of stuff. So what we find is a lot of, I'm sure most of you know, a lot of the chemicals that we spray on our crops, herbicides, pesticides, all that type of stuff. Neonicotinoid heavy pesticides and herbicides are what we're really trying to stay away from. We found out that neonicotinoids inside these pesticides are causing a lot of our colony losses. If you are currently a beekeeper, I just to let you guys know, California suffered a massive loss last year. I mean, they're talking like 90% honeybee colony losses. Everybody who took their bees out there for pollination and everything suffered really heavy losses. The reason that they're finding that they suffered heavy losses is because what they're using to, you guys treat your bees for mites, right? For varroa mites, okay? So you don't treat your bees for varroa mites? No? That if you don't have to, you don't have to, and I get that. Some people will, do you do a check for varroa mites? You do? Okay, kind of keep an eye on them, see if you see them on there. So they've been using, the main chemical that they've been using for varroa mites is amitraz. So if you're using like the mite away strips that you slide down inside the box, inside between the frames, those strips are the chemical in those strips is amitraz. The mites have developed an immunity to them, to that chemical. That's heavily used out there on those bees that they send out. So when we found out that the amitraz isn't working, it wiped out masses of them. AD Honey, I think they're out of North Dakota. They're one of the world's largest beekeeping companies. They have like, I want to say like 50,000+ hives. And they lost like 20,000, 30,000 of them this last year through the winter out in California. It was rough. It was really bad. And I mean, when you lose that many colonies, it's got to be tough to recover from it. So try and change it up this year. We're coming into winter, so if you're going to treat your hives, I recommend treating with oxalic acid. Do that in the wintertime. In the wintertime, treating your bees with oxalic acid means that your queen's not going to get hurt. Oxalic acid doesn't. Treating the bees in the winter. I treat my right. That's what I do. So as soon as I pull all my honey boxes off, I put my treatments down. So oxalic acid is not. It doesn't have a mortality rate with your honeybees. So when you shoot that vapor into your hive, it's not going to kill those honeybees like Formic Pro. You have to use it between set temperatures. If you use Formic Pro above the cap temperature, it releases too much of the chemical into the hive. It starts killing bees. If you use it below the temperature, it's not as effective as it's supposed to be. So you've got a temperature range, and you got to be careful with that. It can kill your queen. This time of year, if you use something like that and it kills your queen, where are you going to find another queen? You're probably not. So you want to be real careful about that this time of year. Come springtime, use something different. Use something other than oxalic acid, something other than amitraz. Use something different. That way you're changing that up so those mites don't gain a resistance to any one chemical. A good, like Formic Pro is a good one. Thymol is also good to use inside your hives for varroa. Do you guys check for mites, or do you just treat? How do you do your mite check? Is it a sugar roll or an alcohol wash? Alcohol wash. So an alcohol wash, basically what we do is we're going to take a cup full of bees, and we're going to anywhere from 100 to 300 bees, and we're going to dump them into a mason jar that has rubbing alcohol in it. And we're going to shake those bees. It's going to kill those bees, but we're going to shake those bees real good for a little bit. We're going to set that down. After it's done, we're going to spread all that out onto a white surface. And you're going to count the little red dots that you see on there. And then do the math. If you have 3 red dots to 300 bees, you're at 1% mite infestation. If you get above 3% mite infestation, you know you have to treat. Because what you see at 3%, it's much worse in the hive. What happens is you get a varroa mite, and she goes down into the cell, and she waits. And then the queen lays that egg, and then that egg starts to develop. As she's down there, she lays an egg. The first egg she lays is a male egg. And then after that male egg hatches, they mate. And she lays another egg. And this happens every 3 days until that cell and that honeybee comes out of that cell. So your worker bee is inside that cell for 21 days. From egg to emerging. That's 7 varroa mites that are going to crawl out of that cell when she comes out herself. Some of them are going to be attached to her. Some of them are going to be trying to attach themselves to other honeybees that are already out in the hive. A drone bee is 23 days to emerge. So she's going to get 1 more varroa mite out of a drone bee. So this is where this time of year it's very detrimental to make sure that you're checking for your mites and treating for those mites, because if you don't, the mites are going to kill your hive. They vector out some 19 different viruses. You can see anything from deformed wings to antennas or physical abnormalities throughout the bee colony that these diseases will start to affect on them. It may not immediately kill your beehive, but anything else that comes around that causes stress to that beehive, boom, it's done. It's over. You'll come back the next day and they're gone. Yes, sir.
Is there a way to do it organically? And I don't mean like organically because you create all companies that
There are different methods to treating for varroa mites out there using different types of essential oils. The issue that I have at this point in my beekeeping career is I have too many hives. I don't have the option to do organic or essential oil type of treatments. I don't even have the opportunity to alcohol wash. I just have to assume that all my hives have mites, and I have to treat them all.
I have a friend who's just passed, but he would be what you'd call a hillbilly.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know what that means exactly, but he's from Arkansas. It's called himself a hillbilly, so I'm not.
It's okay then.
But he said that he feeds between an apple and a sunfish every spring, and they're in there eating the apple and they're eating the sunfish and they make their own medications and that'll off the hive. I'm not saying that he hasn't lost the hive, that he can notice and care about or maybe.
He needs to post that information so we can. Oh well, that doesn't help us now.
Not a connection between where
Right. Thymol, thyme is made. Thymol is made from thyme. Just so you're aware, and thymol is one of the things that we do use to treat. Although thymol is a concentrated form of thyme. Yes, sir.
Do the bees have any natural resistance to the mites?
To the mites, do they have natural resistance to mites or thymol? To mites, right? To mites. So they say that you can get hygienic honeybees. And what they mean by hygienic honeybees is they clean themselves more. They're more OCD about their personal hygiene. And with those hygienic or OHB, I can't remember the acronym for it, but the fact that they clean themselves more, they'll knock the mites off of them more. So those are supposed to be mite resistant, but I've seen those colonies collapse just as fast as any others. So I mean, they say that, but I can't say that there's evidence of that.
Have you seen problems of wax moths? Is that another big problem?
So wax moths, and that's a good one. And then we also have hive beetles that I'm going to touch base on too. So we've got wax moths in the hive. So what's going to happen in a weaker hive is you're going to end up getting wax moths come in. And these are moths that they'll go in there and they'll start laying eggs and larvae in there, and that larva will work their way through all that wax, and they will web out everything. Nasty, stinky, smelly web, and then there's little black pellets all over the place. And we all know what those little black pellets are, right? What goes in must come out. And it's nasty. So once you get wax moths, it's taken over the hive. If there was a colony there, they're typically going to abscond, or they are just dying out. The only thing that you can do to take care of wax moths is keep the colonies strong. So if you have multiple beehives and you have one colony that is not strong, and you've noticed that, make sure you're not having a queen issue. If you're having a queen issue, replace that queen. During the transition of replacing that queen, steal some frames from other hives and drop them into the weak hive so it boosts that colony up. Now, when you steal those frames, do it in the middle of the day. Don't do it when your foragers are in the hive. Do it when all the foragers, and even when you do your regular hive checks, do that in the middle of the day when all them foragers are out. All their foragers, as they get older, those worker bees, they get grumpier and grumpier. So let all the grumpy ones be out in the field while you're in the hive taking care of the nice young ones that are all happy to see you. But steal those hives, put them into the weaker hive, allow the brood to come out. You can even take the nurse bees that are on those frames and put them into the hive to continue to boost that a little bit more. Nurse bees don't typically fight amongst each other, so they won't war with the two hives, the two different kinds of bees from two different colonies. They won't fight each other as much. You can shoot them down with some sugar water. By the time they're done cleaning each other off, they're all sisters again. So that's one of the ways you can help to boost your colony or those weaker colonies. But like I say, you got to find out why it's a weak colony. Is it a weak colony because of varroa mites? Is it a weak colony because you have an older queen that needs to be replaced? Come to find out what that is, resolve that issue, then boost the hive so you know it's not going to continue to happen even though you have boosted that hive. The population increase is going to increase the amount of guard bees and not allow those wax moths to come in. Wax moths can come into some of the smallest cracks. So, like I say, they chew through the wax. As beekeepers, during the winter time, during this time of year, when you're harvesting your honey boxes and you're pulling those brood boxes that don't have bees in them anymore, but you want to save all that comb that the last colony just did all the work for you so you can use it next year. Store those. The first thing you want to do is take a garbage bag and tie them into that garbage bag. Zip tie it, zip tie it, zip tie it so nothing can get in. Take that box with all those frames in it, drop it into a freezer for about 3 or 4 days. Kills everything in there. Take them out, keep them in the garbage bag, set them off to the side. That's one way to do it. You need to freeze them no matter what. So if you don't want to put them in the garbage bag, just put them in the freezer, freeze them, and then when you pull them out, put them on a solid, flat surface and stack them all. and we use what's called Paramoth. You can buy it on Amazon, and they're moth crystals. Don't use moth balls. Moth balls have a toxin in them, will kill bees. Paramoth, though, does not. So you take a paper plate and you fold it and you make it, turn it into a little airplane. And in the center valley of that airplane, you put that Paramoth, and you set that on the very first box, right into the valley of the frames. And then you set up to 5 more boxes on top of that, and then you take another paper plate and you do it again. And you set those as tall as you can stand or as tall as you want. Take a board or something and put that on the very top of the stack. And tape all the seams all the way down through each box so nothing can get in. And that's how you can store that for winter. On a commercial scale, what I do is I take all of my beehives that are like that, I throw them all into a storage container, and then I call my pest control lady. And she goes out there and she has her own special padlock, and she gets into that storage container and she puts down phos toxin, is what it's called. Don't try that stuff on. I've seen it online. Don't try messing with this stuff on your own if you're even able to get a hold of it without a license. It is very deadly. What it does is it comes in contact with moisture in the air, and it eliminates all the oxygen. So there's a story online. A guy got a hold of this stuff. He was going to take care of all the bugs under his trailer. Threw that stuff under his trailer and almost killed his family with it. Yes. So licensed professional only. She goes in there. She administers the phos toxin. It stays in there for about 2 weeks. She padlocks it. Nobody's allowed in or out. She comes back after 2 weeks, opens the whole thing up, lets it air out for a while, cleans everything up. And by the time she's letting it air out, it's cold enough in the wintertime that there's no bugs going in. So it's all set and ready to go, and I don't have wax moths for the year. Next year, all my equipment's good and ready to go. So there are several ways that you can save your hives from wax moths and continue to prevent them from wax moths. So the next pest that we deal with is our hive beetles. So who deals with hive beetles all the time? They're all over the place. If you let them get out of control, they'll slime the hive out. They'll destroy all the honey and just make everything nasty. Not only that, it takes 3 or 4 bees to corner one of them little buggers and keep that sucker in that corner. So now you have 3 bees standing guard on 1 beetle, and it's a waste of resources. There are several things that I do in my setup that help me to deal with the hive beetles. One of the biggest things is I make sure that my hives are out in full sun all day long. I don't put them under the shade of a tree or any of that stuff. I also lay down a heavy-duty landscaping fabric, black, and I tack it to the ground, and it's usually 4 foot wide by however long I need to have it. And I will set the pallets or the hives in the center of that fabric. The hive beetles don't like to run across that black when it gets real hot. But they can still fly, so they'll still get in there. So that's another deterrent is landscaping fabric. Keeping them out in an open, full sun area because they prefer that cooler environment. So if you keep a hive under shade and it's in a cooler environment, you're going to run a better chance of getting more hive beetles in that than if you did if they were out in the open field. Then the third thing I do is I go down to my local Target, and I buy a box of unscented Swiffer floor cleaning sheets. Not the thick padded ones, but just the little duster ones. And I cut those into quarter pieces. And I take a quarter of that piece and I unfold it and I put it right on the top bars of that beehive. And what happens there is the honeybees, they don't want it in the hive. So they're going to start trying to take it out. And what they end up doing is they end up fluffing it out. So it turns into a great big fluff piece of Swiffer sheet. They chase the hive beetle through that Swiffer sheet because it's all fluffy, and the hive beetles have spines on their legs. They get caught, and they can't get out. So they all get trapped into that Swiffer sheet. I've had good success with taking care of those. Now you're going to find that you're going to get some bees caught up and trapped in there too. You're not going to lose near as many bees as you're going to help get rid of hive beetles. So you may see 10 or 15 bees trapped in this Swiffer sheet chunk over a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, and you might see 15, 20 hive beetles in there as well. You're doing what you need to do. Don't worry about those 15 bees. There's 60,000 in the beehive. They can spare it. So that's the best way that I found to control hive beetles. Yes, sir. The rope. Yep. Nope, I forgot. Sorry. I can't go in front of the speakers.
Combat Max, it's a roach thing. They'll come out and get it, and they'll kill the hive, I believe. Not the hive, but the no. We're talking,
Are you talking about the big roaches that you find in the hives?
Well, no, not roaches, but what we're talking about, the
hive beetles?
Beetles, yes.
Okay, so are you talking like
they're little black
discs,
black things with little openings for the roaches to go in?
Yeah.
They will go in and eat that and carry it back and kill all the beetles.
All the other beetles.
Yes, and the bees don't bother it.
It doesn't mess with the bees at all.
That's what I understand, and we used it on some Amish hives. I'm allergic to bees. Is there anything to getting stung? Do you get more and more allergic, or which way do you go?
Allergies to bees are kind of a touch and go thing. Like I say, I've been stung so many times that I don't really even react. I don't swell up anymore. I did, yes, very badly. I distinctly recall getting stung right there, and the next morning I woke up, I couldn't open my eyes. So what's that? Yeah, now, yeah, now I get stung. I've learned through my years of experience that I protect my face. I don't like getting stung in the face. It's really irritating. But like I get stung in the arm or the leg. Sometimes I don't even notice that I've gotten stung anymore. Sometimes if I get stung, the only time I notice is, my arm itches a little bit, because that's part of the effect of getting stung is itchy, swelling. That's what's supposed to happen when you get stung. What's not supposed to happen when you get stung is your heart racing, hard to breathe, your tongue swells up, you go into anaphylactic shock. That's when you need to have an EpiPen. That's when you need to be close to a hospital. So those are the things that to distinguish naturally what's supposed to happen. I get all sorts of people tell me, I'm allergic to honeybees. I'm allergic to honeybees. Well, what happens? Oh, well, I swell up really bad. Wait a second. That's what's supposed to happen because they don't want you messing with them. What's not supposed to happen is it's not supposed to be life-threatening. Now, as far as tolerance and immunity and building up tolerance to honeybees, I could be beekeeping for the next 20 years and not have a sting bother me at all. And then it only takes once and I'm done. And it can be like that with honeybees. Typically, you're going to know, though, as far as whether you have a tolerance for that type of thing or you can build a resistance. Usually within your first year of beekeeping, you'll get stung enough to where you're going to know whether or not it's going to be a problem for you or not. Perfect example is my wife, Judy. She's the second half of AJ. The year before last, and we've been keeping bees for a while, and she's been stung several times, but not several times at once. And it was my mistake. It was my fault because that afternoon I went out to check the bees and to pull honey boxes, and it was 115 out. So as much as I didn't want to be out there and be in those boxes, they didn't want me there either. So I was like, okay, I'm going to close it up, and I'll come back tonight when it's a little cooler to see if that changes. So the wife and I went back out later on that evening, and they were bearding outside of the hives like they often do on those hot, nasty days. and she didn't realize it, but she backed into one of those beards, and they started crawling up her pant legs. Well, she has sensitivity issues in her legs. She doesn't always feel what if something happens. So she got stung 5 or 6 times. I don't know. We didn't count. But the next thing I know, she's kind of trying to talk to me. It's like she can't say anything. She's slurring her words, that type of stuff. And I'm like, okay, I need you to get in the truck. And we didn't have the EpiPen with us at that time. That stopped. I keep it with me all the time now. So she got in the truck, and we're 20 minutes from the hospital. And she's so out of it, she got in the driver's side. And I'm like, okay. I just dropped everything at that point. There were open hives. It was 10 o'clock at night. I'll deal with those later. So I got in the truck. I got her in the passenger seat. I got in the truck, and I started racing into town. About 10 minutes later, she comes out of it. She's able to talk to me. She's coherent again. She knows what's going on. And I'm like, okay, do I need to take you to the hospital, or do you want to go home and try some Benadryl? Well, she's stubborn. Take me home. So I took her home. I fed her some Benadryl. And about 10 minutes after I fed her that Benadryl, she's like, I'm itchy. Like my back's real itchy and my arms are itchy. So I made her show me her back and show me her arms. And she, head to toe, broke out with hives. I looked at her and said, you need to get dressed. We're going in now. I have never seen medical staff move so quickly. I was 2 minutes at the front window. They had her back in triage. She was maybe 60 seconds in triage. They had her in a room, and when she walked into that room, there were 7 nurses in there waiting to start working on her. They stuck her with 2 IVs at the same time, was dumping 2 bags of IV into her, one in this arm, one in this arm. Her blood pressure was dropping, and they started hitting her with epinephrine. They ended up giving her 2 epinephrine shots, and looked at her and told her, you're probably not going to be a beekeeper anymore. So she doesn't go out to work hives with me anymore, which really sucks. She really used to enjoy that. So you got to be careful about that kind of stuff. Make sure that you're paying attention. Make sure you're going to always be safe. If you're keeping bees, talk to your doctor. Say, hey, doc, I'm a beekeeper. Hook me up with that EpiPen. They'll give you your prescription. Yep, usually they come in 2 packs. Mine do. So I have 2 of them. But yeah, safety is number one. To those beekeepers or those people that watch those YouTube videos like I did, be aware. You got beekeepers out there that they may be being safe. Yes.
Now they have a nasal spray.
Oh.
It's way easier to use than standing yourself, but then it's just as like put it in nasal spray.
I will have to talk to my doctor about that. Thank you. Don't be fooled by these YouTube videos. The beekeeper themselves knows the situation that they're getting into. They are able to judge that situation and know what kind of protection that they need, and they are taking their own risks.
Your shit out.
If you're
Everyone
a new
does it, and it
beekeeper,
becomes a barter fair. It becomes
always
actual-
protect your face. If nothing else, at least wear the veil and the hat until you get used to and can start reading what the beehive is about and start getting that feel, whether it's an angry hive or a docile hive or that type of stuff. The one reason I say that is it only takes one sting to the eyeball, and you will not see out of that eye again. That eyeball will be done. And in my mind, I can only imagine a sting to the eyeball, the initial pain, and then the ongoing pain of the eyeball swelling because it's going to, and then losing the vision. I would probably go nuts in my head if that happened. So, always protect your face. Please be safe if you're learning or just starting. Yes, they do. They know where to go for that's the most sensitive, that's going to deter you, and they go for that. That's another thing is when they sting you. So you get stung here, you'll probably get stung in that same spot a couple more times because that stinger leaves a pheromone marker that tells the other bees, this is a sensitive spot. I got here. I got through at this spot. Come to this spot. And they will continue to sting at that spot. So, yes, sir.
do you recommend Italian or Russian bees? Do you have any preference of them? Because I got Italian hives. They produce a little bit more honey, but a little bit less comb. I got a Georgia Deland hive, Triple X hive, which is what I was looking for. And I want my bees to be as safe. You know, you make it.
So I was kind of explaining that a little bit earlier. When it comes to Carnolian, Italian, Russian, buckfast, Saskatraz, whatever different kinds of honeybees breeds that you can think of, when that queen goes on her mating flight and breeds, you cannot guarantee that she is breeding with her same breed. So what she actually lays is a mix. And then as you go on to the next generation, because sometimes you don't always know when that hive requeens itself either. Because a hive can turn around, and if they have a queen that has a wing that's worn out or something wrong with her, they will requeen. They'll kill her and start another queen. And during nectar flow, I don't get into a hive to know that. All I'm doing is adding honey boxes on. So how my spring starts is I start off with a 5-frame nuke colony. I put that 5-frame nucleus colony into a 10-frame box. And as soon as I know that there's an active laying queen in there, I put a queen excluder on that first box. And then I put honey supers on from there. As soon as I know that that is queen right, I don't get into that anymore. I don't pull frames to see if there's eggs, to see if there's brood or any of that. How I check it is I watch for traffic out the front door. If I see pollen going in, there's a queen in there. Why do they take pollen? To feed the eggs. There's no eggs, they don't need pollen. So they honey bound the box because they don't need the pollen anymore. So that's how I check for that. I don't go in and take out every frame. Each time you take out a frame, you're setting that colony back. You're stressing that colony out, and it takes days, 2-3 days for them to recover from that stress. If you just crack a lid and add a box, you're not stressing that colony out. So don't get into the bottom if you don't have to. Once you know that she's in there, she's laying eggs and doing what she's supposed to do, we let her do her thing. So it might be this time of year where I start pulling hives apart looking to see queens. All I know is I have queens in all of them, but I don't know if it was the same queen I started with at the beginning of that year. They could have requeened themselves at any time during that process because I don't check that. I also don't mark my queens, and I won't buy marked queens. As a beekeeper, and especially a new beekeeper, you need to get that eye. You need to learn what that queen looks like. If you can lift that frame out of that box and look at it sideways and pick the queen out across the landscape, you're doing good. But marked queens are cheating. Not only that, is queens aren't marked naturally. So why would I want to introduce something into that hive that's foreign like that? That marking could put a death mark on that queen. The other bees might not like it, and they might kill her for it, thinking she's a weaker queen, and then they requeen themselves anyways. So now you're right back to a colony that doesn't have a marking, and you got to go in and find her without that marking as it is. A lot of the times when I go to check a colony, I don't even look for the queen. I just look for signs of the queen. If she's laid an egg, or if there's fresh eggs there, that means she's laid those eggs within the last 24 hours. As soon as I see it, I'm done with that hive. I put it away. I don't need to mess with it anymore. I know that there's a good laying queen in there. Yep.
Approximately how many times a year do you enter the hive?
I enter the hive on a full hive inspection 2, maybe 3 times in the first of the spring, just to make sure I have a mated queen. If I have a mated queen and I see it on my first inspection, I won't go back into it. If I have a hive that doesn't have a queen or I'm not seeing eggs, I'm going to go into that hive until I have a queen in there that's laying eggs. So I get into it today. Next week, I'm going to get into it again to put in a queen. And then maybe the next week I get into it one more time to see if that queen's laying eggs. Once she's laying eggs, I'm done getting into it. I add a queen excluder. I put a honey super on it. And then I go from there. Once that honey super is 80% full of honey, then I'll put another box on. And I wait till that's 80% full. And I add boxes and boxes from there. You can get some of them. They'll do 3 or 4 boxes for you. Most, on average, will do 1.5 to 2 full boxes of honey. Honey super boxes, not your deeps. I don't pick up that kind of weight anymore. The honey supers are 30 pounds a piece, where your deeps can be 60 to 80. Yeah, no. But yeah. So once they're 80% full, you just add another box. A hive that has 2 full honey supers on it, you're looking at about 5 gallons a bucket, or a 5-gallon bucket full of honey out of that hive. About 60 pounds.
There's always queen larva in there, is there not? The queen lays it, and then if she's still the queen, they kill it as it matures.
Not necessarily. So what will happen inside the hive is, unless if they're trying to force a supersedure where they're going to take out the old queen and start a new queen, they can do the worker bees can make that decision at any time that they want to, and they will actually take a fresh egg that the queen has laid in a regular cell and move it into a queen cell. Okay. And then start a queen like that. Or they could make the queen lay an egg into that queen cell. But they won't lay an egg and then recycle that egg and then lay an egg and recycle that egg again. They'll pull one from a cell or make the queen lay an egg in that cell. And it has to be a queen cell. If it's not a queen cell, then yeah. If you got, I can hang around for a little bit. I think we're going to wrap things up here at the front, but I can hang around for a little bit if you guys have any questions for me. I'm always happy to answer questions. But I thank you all for listening and being here with me today. Always support your local beekeepers. There's lots of good beekeepers around here. If you're wanting to get into beekeeping, find somebody local to you to help you get mentored on that, especially for your first year or so. And if you're not able to find anybody, get a hold of me. I'll help you. I'll help you guys out however I can.
Say, AJ, where can people find you?
You can find me at ajhoneyfarms.com. You can also find me at 901 North 9th Street in Salina. Here, let me write this stuff down for you.
And you're going to be here the next couple of days.
Yeah, I'll be
right here in the front vending.
I'll be here right here tomorrow out front. Answer more questions, talk to people all day long, and I'll have all sorts of different honey products, beeswax products that we carry and we make there in-house at the store. So come see me.
All right, guys, let's give it up for AJ. This is his first time coming out here. I put a call out on the beekeeping page, and he was the first guy. He got right with me, and he's been with us, chatting me up, and I've been chatting him up for the last few months. Like I said, he will be here for the next couple of days. He can't stay tonight, but he'll be right here in this first spot, right by the stage. So you'll be able to ask him questions and make sure you purchase product from him. He's coming from Salina. Let's make it worth our time, the time of our vendors and our sponsors to make the trip to come all the way out here. So thank you for coming. That concludes the final thing on the agenda for today. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, first class with Grumpy Acres Farm on Bold Dairy. And it's going to be cheese and butter making, I believe. So be sure to be here at the stage, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Please remember all the rules, dogs on leashes, pick up their ground gifts, park on the inner circle, camp on the outer circle. Make sure you go see the ladies and gentlemen over at the tent and purchase your opportunity tickets, and we can talk more about that later. But once again, let's go ahead and give a round of applause to AJ. Oh, yes. Right over here where the kids are having their events, that whole area where the caution tape is, that's where the community campfire is. We're going to stock that up with wood tonight. So if you want to come hang out and get to meet some of the people who are out here, some of the neighbors, even some of the speakers, Chances are William Bond will be here tonight and around the campfire, so you'll get to hang out and get to talk to him. Be sure to come out, make this thing a community-based event. Bring your kids, bring the adults. Remember, quiet time, 10 to 7. 10 o'clock tonight till 7 in the morning is quiet hours. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you all in the morning.